Hi students, this is Aisha Sayyad and today we will have a look at the analytical process that's gravimetry. So let's begin. Let us have a look at the principles first. It is a method used for quantitative analysis of any particular ion using its mass as a basis for measurement of its concentration. So initially we need to calculate the mass of an ion in a known compound in which the concentration of the ion under analysis is known. Okay, so this can be used as a standard concentration for the determination of ion in an unknown compound. A process is used as the basis. mm, A process of precipitation is used as a basic principle in gravimetric analysis. Precipitate which is formed is always a pure compound and hence accurate mass of an ion under analysis can be calculated. And there is one more factor that if there are more than one ions which are being analyzed, then contrast in the masses of those ions can be used as the key factor for the calculation. Let's have a look at the steps involved in gravimetry. This diagram gives us the overall view of the gravimetry right from making the solution to preparing the precipitate and then filtration for separating the pure compound of which mass is calculated as a result of this gravimetric analysis. To begin with, we must prepare the sample solution using accurate combination of analyte and dissolving agent. Okay, it is important to adjust the volume and pH of the analyte solution so that we get the desired properties of the final precipitate. Also, this adjustment of the pH and volume helps to obtain the quantitative precipitate, thereby giving the most accurate results which are possible. Next is we will see there are three different stages in the precipitation process. So precipitation step comprises of the three stages, namely supersaturation, nucleation, followed by particle growth. Supersaturation is achieved at the point when first drop of precipitating agent is added to the sample solution. Further addition of the precipitating agent triggers the process called as nucleation, where molecules of the precipitate start agglomerating. Then addition of one extra drop of precipitating agent at this point leads to formation of either new nuclei with smaller particle size or smaller particles build on the existing nuclei to form the larger particles. So either of these processes takes place, thereby resulting in particle growth. Let's have a look at the example for precipitation process for Pb2 plus ion, that is lead. Pb2 plus ion forms the precipitate like PbSO4, lead sulfate, when infused with the precipitating agent which contains SO2 plus ions. So as you can see in the picture, solid soluble salts containing Pb2 and other chemical species are present. They are dissolved in the solution which contains Pb2 plus ion and other chemical species. And then we have to add the solution which contains SO4 2 plus ions, thereby resulting in the formation of precipitates like PbSO4. Then comes in the picture von Wiener ratio. Let's have a look at what is this von Wiener ratio is. This ratio comes into the picture when we talk about the stages of precipitation. According to this ratio, size of the precipitate particle is inversely proportional to the quantity of the ion under analysis, and this phenomena is known as relative supersaturation. As you can see in the equation, Q is the concentration of the reactants present before the precipitation stage. Okay, here reactants means the substances that are present in the sample solution along with an ion under analysis. And S is the solubility of the precipitate in the medium which is being used. Relative supersaturation has inverse effect on the particle growth, and hence lower the value of ratio, better is the particle growth. In other words, we can say Q should be as low as possible and S should be as high as possible. Then to achieve this stage of lower ratio or the lower relative supersaturation rate, one needs to focus on maintaining the optimum conditions. What are these conditions now? First is using dilute solutions as precipitating agents, thereby keeping the Q, that is concentration of the substances, as low as possible. Further, we can use precipitating agent needs to be added slowly and constant stirring of the solution while adding the precipitating agent. This avoids the concentration sites, which will help to achieve the lower Q values and ultimately lower relative supersaturation, giving precipitate with better particle growth. Now we move on to the next step, that is the digestion, which is usually related to Ostwald's ripening. In this process, precipitated solution is heated for approximately 30 minutes to 1 hour, but this has to be below the boiling point of the solution. This leads to the dissolution of smaller particles, thereby causing reprecipitation. What is reprecipitation now? It is nothing but the adsorption of the smaller particles on the surface of larger particles. This results in the formation of precipitates with better particle growth and enhanced characteristics. Now, there are usually two types of precipitates which are obtained, namely colloidal precipitates and crystalline precipitates. Colloidal precipitates are formed by agglomeration of the particles. These kind of particles have reduced surface area, thereby leading to reduced adsorption. Whereas crystalline precipitates are the ones in which ions are trapped in larger molecules upon formation of precipitate. If these trapped ions are non-volatile, like then they stay for longer and then they end up interfering the weighing process at the end of the analysis. Because the weight of this non-volatile ion gets added to the weight of the precipitate that is achieved. Hence, it is always advisable to reduce the concentration of interfering substances in the sample under analysis. Let's have a look at the phenomena of post-war ripening. This diagram will help us to understand the process. As we have already discussed, smaller particles of precipitate, for example ferrous sulfate, are dissolved due to digestion and they get adsorbed on the surface of larger molecules, thereby leading to the particle size growth. Next step is washing and filtering. Once you have the precipitate ready at the end of the digestion process, next action that needs to be taken is washing of this precipitate and then filtering the same to get the pure compound. Washing causes reduction in the surface adsorption, and this phenomena is called as peptization. Peptization is nothing but the dissonation of ions having similar charges. As we know, each particle is made up of two layers, out of which outer layer is removed during washing, thus leaving behind particles of similar charges. Peptidization has major effect on colloidal precipitates, causing loss of precipitate upon filtration. This loss can be recovered by water with this loss can be recovered by replacing water with other dilute volatile electrolytes such as nitric acid, ammonium nitrate, dilute acetic acid, etc. Thorough washing of the precipitate is necessary for removal of any extra precipitating agent present, as this can interfere with the final results upon weighing. Gouache, crucible, or ignition ashless filter paper is commonly used for filtering the precipitate. Once filtrate and precipitate are separated, we must check for the complete precipitation of the analyte. Now, how do you check if the precipitation process is complete or not? For this, we have to add few more drops of precipitating solution in the analyte solution. If there are any traces of the analyte present, then some more amount of precipitate is formed. And if no precipitate is seen, then it confirms the completion of precipitation process for the ion under analysis. This is the picture where we get to see the apparatus used for separation of supernatant liquid and precipitate which is formed. Gentle stirring with the stirring glass rod is required, and it helps to achieve the complete separation of the supernatant liquid and the precipitate formed. Then the next process is drying and ignition. Precipitate obtained upon filtration is then dried using either oven and furnace. Temperature of 120 to 150 degrees Celsius for removal of extra moisture is maintained in an oven. Further, this when the on removal of moisture, this precipitate is ignited in muffle furnace at around temperature ranging from 600 to 1200 degrees Celsius. Material of the known chemical structure is used for calculating the mass of an analyte. Here we can have a look at the example for precipitation of the calcium ion. Oxalate ion is used for forming the calcium oxalate precipitate, which is hydrophilic in nature, and also chemical structure for the same is known. So basically you have to use a precipitating agent which will help you to give the precipitate, or which will help you to give the salt for which the chemical structure is known. Presence of more than one salt and or precipitate forms of any ion leads to inaccurate results, and hence only single salt form is preferred to get quantitative precipitate. This means in this example we have to make sure that the calcium ion makes only one precipitate, and hence we have to use only one precipitating agent. If we use a combination of precipitating agents, calcium ion will form more than one precipitates, and this will interfere in the final result of the analysis. Have a look at the oven and the muffled furnace, which is usually used in the laboratories for performing the gravimetric analysis. There are numerous varieties of oven and muffled furnaces are available for the laboratory as well as for the industrial uses. The size and the properties of the muffled furnace and oven vary from place to place, like whether it is used in the laboratory or it is used in the industry, depends. Then we come to weighing. This is the final step in the gravimetric analysis. Precipitate formed can neither be weighed accurately nor it is removed completely when it is obtained on the filter paper. It is very difficult to remove each and every particle of the precipitate from the filter paper. Also, it is not possible to weigh the precipitate you precipitate using the along with the filter paper. Okay, so weighing is usually carried out using the ashless filter paper. Why we use ashless filter paper? Because ashless filter paper can be burnt away using an apparatus called as gouge crucible. So this gouge crucible will help to dry out the precipitate in the desiccator. Ashless filter paper is burned and there is no contamination of this filter paper. It is ashless, it does not create any kind of ash which can be mixed in the precipitate. So the filtrate ashless filter paper is burnt away, then you have the pure compound, that is a pure precipitate. And further, you have to dry the precipitate in the desiccator in the gouge crucible itself. And lastly, you have to subtract the weight of the empty gouge crucible from the total weight of the crucible as well as precipitate, thereby obtaining the final weight of the precipitate which is formed. Have a look at the one type of gouge crucible and ashless filter paper. Ashless filter papers of various grades are used based on the samples under analysis. So this was the overview of for the principles of gravimetry. Should you have any queries, please feel free to discuss. Thank you.